Now in this next video I'm going to show you this beautiful cabled scarf. I'm going to go through each row stitch by stitch that's required to achieve this piece of work. We're using a pair of 10mm needles here and 2 plies together, i.e. 2 strands of a typical aran yarn, so there'll be lots of scope and choice of colour for your scarf project should you decide to make this with me. Now do check out the description box because I have a beautiful infinity version of this particular project which joins together with the kitchen stitch, and also I've got gloves to match, so do check out the description box if you're interested in those items. So anyway, I can't wait to show you this. Let's get on with the video tutorial. For this project I'm using Hayfield Bonus Aran. It's a typical aran yarn, so for results similar to mine, marry the ball band tension. Cast on a total of 38 stitches using 8mm needles, and notice how I'm using 2 plies of a typical aran yarn. Now we're going to start this scarf by creating a purl to knit to ribbed band, and then we'll move on to the main pattern section. Row 1, a right side row, begin by purling 2, and next knit 2, and you're going to repeat that rib all the way along. So purl 2, and next knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, keep going, purl 2, and knit 2, and all being well we will end a right side row by purling 2. Coming to the end of row 1, and you want to end by purling 2. So remember, row 1 we begin purling 2 and we end purling 2. Now for row 2, a wrong side row. This time we begin by knitting 2, and we will also end the work by knitting 2. So after knitting those first 2, I want you to purl 2 and repeat that rib pattern all the way along. So I'm going to show you the first 2 rows in full. And when we have our rib pattern completed, and we are ready to move on to the main pattern, we'll also up our needle size. So knitting 2 and purling 2. So rows 1 and rows 2 will be repeated to form the ribbed band to the bottom of the scarf. And all being well, we need to end our wrong side rows by knitting 2. So that's good, that's correct. So that's row 2. Complete a total of 10 rows of a purl 2 knit 2 rib pattern. We have 2 more rows to complete before we move on to the main pattern repeat. Now I'm going to call this row A. Row A is going to be a decrease row. We're going to decrease down to 36 stitches. So I want you to begin by knitting 11. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and incidentally I've forgotten to say that I'm now moving up to a 10mm needle, so ensure you go up in needle size if you want results similar to mine. So I've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Next, I want you to knit 2 together, but through the backs of the loops, like so. So knit 2 together through the back of the loop. Position your first marker and knit, but leave the last 13 stitches because we have another decrease. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, another 3 to go. Get yourself a second marker. Next, knit 2 together and knit to the end of the row, so that's row A, and check that you have 36 stitches. Going forward, that's what we want, 36 stitches, and we want to be using our 10mm needles. So that's row A, right side row. Now for row B, I want you to purl 12, three, 4, and this should take us up to the marker, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and when you get to the marker, that's a prompt to remind you to change to a knitwise stitch. So we're now going to knit 12, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's looking good. Move the marker over and end row B by purling 12, and that will conclude our setting up for the main pattern repeat. So once row B is done, we can move on and complete rows 1 to 8 over and over again of the main pattern repeat, which I'm going to show you next. Great. We are now ready to move on to the main pattern section. So this consists of 8 rows, and by repeating those 8 rows over and over again, you build up the fabric, just as I've done here. I've done a few repeats, but we can dive into the middle and begin with row 1. So for row 1 of the main pattern repeat, begin by knitting 4. That's 2, 3, 4, and next we're going to do an 8 stitch left cross. Now I'm using a double pointed needle to act as a cable needle, so get your cable needle. So in my case, this double pointed needle, which achieves the same thing, and slip 4 stitches onto the cable needle like so. Hold the 4 stitches to the front of the work and then knit 4 from the left needle. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Very carefully slip the 4 stitches held on the cable needle onto the left needle. And then knit those. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Move the marker over and knit 12. Move your marker over. Next we're going to do an 8 stitch right cross, and first we're going to slip 4 stitches onto our cable needle, and then we're going to hold those 4 stitches at the back of the work. Then we're going to knit 4. Now Carefully slip the 4 stitches from the cable needle onto the left needle. And now knit those 4 stitches and knit the last 4. So that's row 1 of the main pattern repeat, a right side row. So row 2, a wrong side row. We're going to begin by purling 12. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So that's purl 12, move the marker over, and that prompts you to change to work the next 12 stitches knitwise. So it's a little prompt on the wrong side to encourage you to keep the pattern correct, if you like. So when we get to the next marker, without even thinking about it, we can purl 12. So I've reached my marker. I now know I need to purl those last 12 stitches. So that would be row 2, and row 2 is repeated a lot in this repeat. Rows 4, rows 6 and rows 8 will be the same as row 2. So that's row 2 completed. So row 3 is a nice easy knit row, so we're going to knit all the stitches on this row. It's a nice break. So we're just going to knit all the way across. So that's row 3. Row 4, it's the same as row 2, and we begin by purling 12, so we're purling up to that first marker. Move the marker over. We now know that we have to knit till the next marker, so knitting 12. Slip the marker over. We're now going to purl the last 12 stitches there. So that's row 4. Row 5 is a cabling row. We're going to begin with an 8 stitch right cross. So slip the next 4 stitches onto your cable needle, or in my case I'm using a double pointed needle to do the same job. Hold the cable needle to the back of the work and knit the next 4. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now very carefully transfer the stitches from the cable needle onto the left needle. And then knit those 4 stitches from the cable needle. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Knit another 4, taking you up to the marker. Slip the marker over and continue to knit to the next marker, so knitting 12. Move the marker over and knit the next 4. And with the last 8 stitches we're going to do an 8 stitch left cross. So with your cable needle, take the next 4 stitches and hold at the front. Knit the next 4 stitches. Carefully transfer the stitches from the cable needle onto the left needle and knit those. So that's row 5. Row 6. It's the same as row 2, so we are purling the first 12 stitches. So that takes us to that first marker. Slip the marker over, and that marker reminds us that on a wrong side row we need to change to a knit stitch for the next 12. When you get to the next marker, we want to purl the remaining stitches. So purl the last 12 stitches, and that would be row 6. Row 7. Now row 7 is the same as row 3. It's a nice easy knit row. So knit all the way to the end there for row 7. So that's row 7. Now row 8 is the last row for the main repeat. So it's the same as row 2, so we're purling 12. Move the marker over and now knit the next 12 stitches. After knitting 12, move that marker over and purl the last 12 stitches. Now those 8 rows form the main pattern repeat. So what you have to do is keep repeating rows 1 to 8 until your project is the right size for you. So that's row 8. Now I've completed about 1.9 meters of knitting for this scarf, and I've ended on a row 6, and I'm now ready to finish the scarf with a little ribbed pattern detail. So I've allowed roughly 5 centimeters on either end of the scarf to allow the ribbed pattern to finish it. So we're aiming for a total length to this scarf of about 2 meters. And for the ribbed pattern, I'm going down in needle size to 8 millimeters. So on this row, note we'll also be increasing to 38 stitches. We're going to begin this row by purling 2 using our 8 millimeter needle, and then knitting 2. And we're going to really repeat that pattern throughout. So we're purling 2, then knitting 2, purling 2, and then knitting 2. So remove the marker. We're next going to do a yarn over, so bring the yarn to the front and wrap it around the needle. That's how you do a yarn over when your next stitch is a purl 1. And next we're going to knit 2 and purl 2. And again, keep going with the pattern, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, and you're left with 1 stitch and then the marker. And what I'd like you to do is purl into that stitch. I'm just going to make sure that that's caught properly there. So purl that stitch, and simply by leaving the yarn to the front of the work, that will create a yarn forward that will form an extra stitch when we knit the next stitch. Can you see? So if I do that again, simply leaving it in the front, knitting 1 creates that extra stitch there. So knit a second stitch, then purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2 and end the work by purling 2. So on the right side row we begin by purling 2 and we end by purling 2. So for row 2, the wrong side, we're going to begin by knitting 2 and we're going to maintain the rib pattern. So next we purl 2 and we keep repeating that stitch sequence until we get to our yarn over, and then we're going to work into the back of it. So I'm knitting 2, purling 2, and there's my yarn over. So work into the back knitwise and knit 1 and then carry on in pattern. So purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, and if we knit 1 we get to our next yarn over. Again work knitwise into the back, and next purl 2 and keep going in pattern, knit 2, purl 2. So we have 38 stitches now of a purl 2, knit 2 ribbed band, and on the wrong side we end with a knit 2. So that's row 2. So a right side row, begin by purling 2 and then knit 2 and repeat that pattern throughout, and you end the work by purling 2. So that's a right side row. This is row 3. So at the end of row 3 and the last 2 stitches there, purling 2, and if we flip to the wrong side, we're going to begin by knitting 2 for row 4 and then purling 2, and at the end of row 4 you will end the work by knitting 2. I'm coming to the end of row 4, a wrong side row, and I'll be knitting those last 2 stitches. Keep repeating rows 3 and 4 until you have a total of 10 rows, and then we can cast off, and I would do so in pattern. So what that means is where you have a purl stitch, begin by purling 1, another purl stitch, purl that one, and then cast off. And where you have a knit stitch, so the next stitch is a knit stitch, knit that one, cast off, another knit stitch, cast off. So next in the pattern would be a purl stitch, so purl that stitch, and cast off, and continue in that fashion all the way along and correspond your cast off with the main pattern. So I'd like to thank you for watching.